Mike Adele, a human capital development consultant, joins me to talk about this. Good morning, Mike, and thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning.
Welcome back from the long weekend. Now, looking at this data and talking about the job creation agenda of the president, what are your expectations? What does this data tell you as an expert?
I think I must first and foremost commend this administration because obviously the last time I was here, we spoke about the graduate internship scheme that was about to be, well, rumors said it was about to be scrapped. And obviously, we actually began to talk about it. That's right, it shouldn't be scrapped because obviously, if it's been scrapped, what's going to happen to all the tens of thousands of people who are already on the scheme and the people that are already willing to get on the scheme, which they actually listen to and actually begin to roll the program forward, which is quite great. Now, also, when we're talking about this figure that we have now, I mean, we should begin to appreciate the fact that it's a new administration. And there are a lot of anomalies that's been created that actually resulted into all this, which he has promised. During his campaign period, they actually promised that he's going to be one of these major instruments to use to ensure that unemployment is actually being reduced drastically. But if you look at the figure, especially what you just showed now on the in the second quarter, I mean, you look at the formal sector and you look at the informal sector as well. As an analyst, I carried the research, I think about 6 months ago, to try to find out why this figure keeps growing instead of being reducing. There are a lot of catalysts that's actually been responsible for all this. Now, we have been advocating, I know you're going to smile when I talk about this now, for what we call voluntary job scheme, which people are supposed to actually engage themselves in, which is a governmental, parental, and institutional responsibility to actually get this done. I mean, a lot of people are going to be saying, why do we have to do this voluntarily without being paid? But no pain, no gain. You have to get yourself involved with something to actually begin to get you into the system. It happens in the Western world all the time, and people actually volunteer to work to gain experience. It's a cost to the employer in the first place, but obviously, I mean, you don't think because you're doing something voluntarily, you are losing out. You're not losing out, you're gaining actually. Now, if that has been institutionalized, the honest truth is, we begin to, I mean, we have the graduate internship scheme now, which is something closer to it for employers to take with that, to begin to train people, to give them that knowledge they actually need. But let's see how it goes. I mean, it's just early days.
Well, talking about early days, and you mentioned voluntarily submitting themselves to, you know, working without pay, no gain. So for you, if we have a lot more people, because looking at the statistics, we have more youths, more unemployed between the ages of 15 and 64, or underemployed. Let's look at it in the context of the NBS report, unemployed and underemployed. We have a lot of them. About 8% was recorded in the second quarter of the year between the ages of 15 and 64. Now you're trying to encourage more voluntary participation in the workspace, and the president is talking about creating more jobs. Now, when eventually, you know, we get policies and actions to come out, do you expect to see more people going into the formal or informal sector based on what you've actually said, where you gain experience, you know, doing voluntary work?
I can categorically tell you there are thousands, tens of thousands of jobs out there that can't be filled.
In the informal or the formal?
In both sectors. Well, in the formal sector, rather. And I can tell you because as I speak, I can tell you on my table I have more than 120-something vacancies that can be filled, that require skilled people. We don't have them. Now, if you go to the informal sector, what happens to all technical experiences, education? Now, going to the construction industry, for example, majority of the people that actually get themselves involved in that industry are not Nigerians. You're talking about the plumbers, experienced plumbers. You're talking about the tilers. You're talking about the technicians. They actually bring them in from out of the country to come and work in here. Now, if we have a structured technical education in this country that actually, in many years ago, I mean, we used to be proud of all those sectors, the technical education that we used to have then, that we have people that have been trained in every form of, technical skills. and we will bring out all these people that will go into the both formal and most especially into the informal sector.
But Mike, let me stop you there. Sorry. Yeah. Let's remember that we've got a situation where the number of underemployed is more than what we have as unemployed.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more people who are trained in a particular field but are not utilizing 90% of what they've learned in their present capacity, whatever job it is that they are in. Now the president says 3 million jobs will be created every year. So who should now fill up that space? The underemployed or the unemployed? You're talking about skill set. We've got people who are skilled but underemployed.
Yeah.
So in what category, or how do you think it should go?
You see, it's a one question, but it requires a lot of answers. Now, one, you're talking about the underemployed. I'm sorry to say this, a large number of our graduates are half-baked. They call themselves graduates, but when you put them to test, they can't do, you ask yourself, how did these people pass through the 4
so Mike, let's
walls?
quickly talk about those numbers. Labor market statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics. We have employed at 67,947 million, and the underemployed, well, they took that off just before we got to, but you get the general picture that what we have isn't what we, okay, it's back. The unemployed is about 6,063,000, fully employed 54,376,000, and well, the data is not too encouraging. And then now we have the situation where some institutions, for lack of the ability to pay their staff, are starting to lay more people off. So we have a huge number again coming into the market. People who have skills, but not enough jobs to carry them.
Let me lay more emphasis on this. I think I've mentioned it before, and it's so painful that this is happening. It's a great thing to bring in investors into the country and protect the investors and the investments. But the question I'm asking is, who is protecting the Nigerian worker who is working and making the money for those investors? Now, I have cases on my table, as we speak right now, of unemployed and some employed people who are actually complaining that they've been bastardized, they've been molested by their employers. There are some employers that, as we speak, I'm telling you right now, that if they place an advert for employment, people would be reluctant to work with them. Now, why do all this thing happen? Our government, we have laws that are actually supposed to be guiding these people, guiding all these companies and these employers. But the question is, who is actually monitoring to make sure that the effectiveness of these laws are in place? I mean, if I'm being treated or being ill-treated with an employer, and I'm a very skilled person, I would rather quit that job, right, voluntarily, and go find something doing else.